Today, let's analyze the MicroStrategy stock. I will show you the mandatory volatility, which provides us with interesting signals. We'll also discuss the volatility smile and historical volatility. We'll touch upon the options market as well. Additionally, I'll demonstrate a non-directional strategy for this stock. Let's start from the beginning. The MicroStrategy stock has surged by 300% recently. It continues to rise, but there was a significant drop in the last day. I always overlay the Bitcoin chart on this stock. As we can see, previously Bitcoin and MicroStrategy had almost 100% correlation. I remind you that MicroStrategy holds almost 200,000 Bitcoins in its account as of Wednesday. Bitcoin has surged significantly over the past few months, and MicroStrategy has grown even more. Let's overlay this Bitcoin chart. As we can see, there has been a very high correlation almost always. I have already mentioned that in February 2021, we saw a breakdown in correlation. MicroStrategy surged much more than Bitcoin, almost by 70%, but then, as we can see, the correlation completely restored. Here we have the same situation for now. MicroStrategy is growing and outpacing Bitcoin by almost 70%. Before drawing any conclusions, let's take a look at the volatility and what's happening here. The first volatility remains at a very high level, around 140%. This is indeed a lot. I remind you that the higher the volatility, the higher the options price. Therefore, it's very difficult to trade options on this stock at the moment because the insurance will cost a lot of money. Let's look at the volatility smile. As we can see, the smile is directed exclusively towards the downside for put options. For put options, as we can see, the smile and volatility do not increase at all, especially at the 250 level. We see a sharp and steep rise. This indicates that traders are certainly more inclined towards expecting a drop rather than betting on growth. Let's look at the historical and implied volatility. As we can see, historical volatility is the gray line, implied volatility is the white line. At the moment, implied volatility is probably much higher than its historical values. Also, I remind you that sooner or later these values converge, and implied and historical volatility will converge sooner or later. What can we make of this? It can be concluded from this that we can devise a strategy for reducing volatility. Let's think we will have a strategy not aimed at predicting the direction of the stock. Everyone talks about figuring out whether the stock will go up or down and starts guessing. Someone imposes certain lines, draws something else. I say, guys, we need to think differently. We need to use other strategies. For example, a strategy of reducing volatility, returning volatility to its historical values. You can make money on this too, regardless of whether the stock goes up or down. Of course, I will tell you a little more about this later. Let's also look at the volume of trades. In my opinion, there is a very large volume at a concentrated level of $3,800. Let's look at the charts where this $3,800 is. This is an increase of almost 120%. Of course, I cannot answer why exactly such a volume and why such a price were chosen, but clearly there is something behind this price. I will tell you a little later what exactly could be behind this price. We also have a very large volume at $2,000. But in general, not many people trade options. So why did this stock experience such a strong growth? Let's start from the beginning. Bitcoin obviously surged, which led many investors and traders to buy options on this company. Consequently, market makers had to sell options. Market makers use a delta-neutral strategy to hedge their risks. When selling an option, they buy shares. Therefore, the more the stock grows, the more shares they need to buy, because the delta of the option also increases. This is a dynamic strategy, so the faster and the more the stock grows, the greater its potential for further growth due to gamma compression and volatility squeeze. That's why Bitcoin only grew by 74%, while this stock grew by 300%. As you can see, the stock significantly outperforms Bitcoin. Let's also focus again on this huge volume at $3,800. What could this mean? First of all, I've already mentioned that if Bitcoin grows to $100,000, then this stock will be worth at least $2,000. When Bitcoin was only $70,000, I may have to reconsider my decision. And the stock, of course, will rise much higher. Again, there are no guarantees, but this volume signifies something. And if everyone assumes that Bitcoin has grown to $100,000, then I can speculate what the stock will be worth. But again, I don't believe that Bitcoin has currently reached $100,000. I simply don't believe it. I can quite imagine that after some rollback it might rise, but for now, I don't believe it. So at the moment, I don't believe that the stock has risen to $3,800. But again, I showed you why such a figure contributes to this. Everything vividly. I explained to you. As promised, I will now show you the strategy. As we can see, this is our efficiency profile, and wherever the stock goes, we make a profit. Yes, if it starts to fall very strongly or rise very strongly, we may lose money. Again, I do not recommend opening this position under any circumstances. I personally will not open it because the strategy is very complex. It needs to be managed. Here we have sold uncovered options. If you open it and don't manage it, you will definitely lose money. I guarantee you that. Deep knowledge and understanding are needed here. You can lose everything in just one moment. I also fully admit that stocks need some correction. That is, the risk to reward ratio is not in favor of the investor. I remind you of my philosophy that I don't know where the stock will go. I cannot predict. The most important task is intelligent position management. That's the main success, therefore. At the moment, the profit potential for investors, in my opinion, is limited. I mean that the stock, of course, could rise to $2,200 in the near future, but look at how much potential downside it has. That is The risk to reward ratio is not in favor of the investor. And in general, if you don't understand where the stock is going, honestly, I wouldn't touch it. I personally don't have it in my portfolio. I'm waiting for a correction to possibly buy it. But for now, I'm just observing. Opening a short position on this stock is very dangerous because you can get knocked out. Buying this stock is also dangerous because hedging through options is very expensive. I've already told you about the rules. Actually, it doesn't matter where the stock goes. I've said many times, I'll repeat it again. The most important thing is intelligent position management. If you learn how to manage the strategy properly, as I showed you, building it through options, then you won't care where the price moves, up or down. The main thing is that it moves somewhere. You can even make it so that it doesn't move at all, and you will still profit from it. Also, I want to say that I plan to open a new account completely from scratch, where I'll fund it with monetization from YouTube. As soon as I get monetization, I'll open the account immediately. I'll build the strategy completely transparently, showing and explaining everything about my portfolio, why I bought these stocks. Opening up the strategy, everything will be from scratch. I think you'll find it interesting. Let's continue to observe this stock. If Bitcoin's value continues to rise significantly, then undoubtedly this stock will also rise significantly. But predicting the price of cryptocurrency is very difficult to do. If the stock experiences any volatility or anything else here, of course, there isn't that yet. Possibly in the future, the cryptocurrency market will develop. But I also want to remind you that our stock doesn't trade on weekends, whereas Bitcoin trades very actively. If something happens over the weekend and Bitcoin drops by approximately 10 to 20%, I fear the stock could collapse even faster because margin calls will start. Someone clearly stands behind this stock, connecting it with the options market. Market makers might urgently dump their hedge. They might even do it before the market opens on the morning session. This stock could plummet very significantly. One cannot forget about this. So either you're a long-term investor willing to weather this downturn, or it's difficult to say how you can navigate all of this. I also advise you to watch my previous video regarding this stock. There I also discussed the strategy, gave my forecast. Good luck to everyone.